Is it an error to act unpredictably and behave in ways that run counter to how you were programmed to behave?
Hello, and welcome to my super secret channel, Mind for Story. Today I want to talk about advancing or advancement in Chapter 11 of The Good Place. And I'm really late with this video because I've been battling a malfunctioning computer this entire time. And you'll very likely be able to tell with some of my clips that the software wasn't working at its best. And I'm sorry in advance for that. I'll try to make up for it by being super insightful in my commentary. A quick reminder, I'm a story spoiler. If you haven't watched Good Place all the way through to the end, please do so before watching my content. I would absolutely hate to ruin the story for you.
Whoa, your point total was crazy high, Eleanor.
Why doesn't anyone think about the point system and see it as flawed or problematic? My first thought is, you don't question systems that you're at the top of, the ones in which you are doing the best or the ones that benefit you the most, right? I mean, in this scenario, the system saying that everyone in there is more, like in that room, is morally superior to Eleanor. So nobody is thinking of, anyone who isn't in that room, anyone who doesn't have a high point value, morally speaking, at this time. They are only thinking of Eleanor because she is there and they know her already. So if you think of like any system that you are a part of or have been a part of, school, for instance, if you were a top student, did you really think there was a problem with grades as a thing? I mean, maybe, but probably not. It was likely actually a source of pride to you and your family that you did well in school, and those other students who performed poorly, don't worry about them, or it said something bad about them as a person, whether it was that, they weren't smart or they didn't work hard, something like that. And I'm not saying this to try and belittle anyone's accomplishments. It's the first example I could think of to demonstrate what I mean within the real world when I talk about these sort of, grading system, I guess, because the point system is a grading system. So I went very directly at grades right there.
I'm gonna do nice things for every goober in this place until my point total is so high I can rub it in all their smug faces.
I don't know, I sort of imagine most people having this kind of an attitude when they imagine to themselves, before they've done the work, they imagine to themselves being the best at something or having the best of something. Not necessarily that you're going to be like obviously petty and go rub it in, but you want others to notice how well you're doing, and sort of you want them to measure themselves against you because you're doing really good, and you want them to, if you're completely honest, I'm going to be completely honest, this is clearly me talking about me, you want them to feel bad by comparison, and that's terrible. But if you think of how often you're on the other side of that situation, like me, I'm constantly on the other side of that situation, does it make me like that person? No. Am I actually mentally critiquing everything wrong with them? Like, am I sitting there discounting their accomplishments, essentially belittling them, so they are more back on my level? Yeah, most likely. But by being, getting points for being good or something, I mean, everybody should want to be good, ideally, but this whole measuring how good you are or how much good you put into the world, it's not really ever meant to be a status symbol. So the very fact that Eleanor can see it that way, that should tell us that the whole idea of a point system is already a problem. The fact that that is even a way that you can think of it should tell you it's a problem. And it's not just Eleanor. Tahani clearly was reading a lot into the point system. In one of the earlier episodes, we saw her risk her own life because she wanted her points value to be even higher.
There has to be something bigger I can do than holding the door and waving.
But generally, small actions are the things that up to the person that you are. I'm thinking of Dr. Chris Lee. It's another person I follow on Instagram. He talks about habit becoming who you are. And an example I believe he used once is someone who says, I need to go to the gym, versus being a person who goes to the gym. I also just, on Masterclass, I started watching the videos by the man who wrote Atomic Habits, and he's essentially saying the same thing, but he sort of comes at it in reverse about a little bit about it being identity formation when you're trying to form habits. But anyways, I'm wondering if advancement isn't something we end up wanting simply because you can strategize for it. So stay with me. That's why goals are meant to be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, because then it's clear if you get there or not. And you can actually plot your way from here to there as though planning a course on a map. I'm thinking of how we go from a place of, I want to be this person, but doing the small things that turn me into that person are not fun or enjoyable, or I'm not motivated to do it, to someone who realizes they're living a day in the life of that person they once envisioned themselves being. Eleanor does that in this story, but right now she's very much trying to do the part she doesn't like, the small thing that is more annoying than inspiring, just holding doors for people who are giving her side-eye. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the many very important doors that we see throughout this show. And by door, I'm also including portals and threshold, the threshold thingamajig that Michael puts on a hot air balloon late in season 2 that lights up based on if you're the best version of yourself. Because from the beginning of the story, Eleanor and Chidi, well, I think we meet Chidi when he comes through Eleanor's front door, right? And we meet Michael looking out the door of his office. And throughout season 1, Eleanor and Chidi, they rely on the privacy of a closed door to the rest of the neighborhood while they work on improving Eleanor. Late in season 2, Michael and Janet have to lead the 4 humans through the bad place to the portal that will take them to the judge's chambers. And there's a door, an actual door, complete with doorman, down to Earth, which Michael has to pass through several times. And later a copy portal of that door that Sean and the other demons construct that works similarly and brings them to Earth. And how many scenes are there where we see someone knocking on Mindy St. Clair's front door when they come to the medium place? Or when Eleanor seeks out Chidi on Earth, and she does what he said was the normal way somebody would, introduce themselves to him. She comes in, she knocks on his office door, comes in, and, introduces herself, asks for help. And I've been thinking about it. It's an obvious one, but the doors represents transition or change. So when, one is stuck, a person is stuck, maybe you need a new door to knock on or to pass through. Maybe I feel like I've said this several times. Try a change of location. Try meeting new people. Yeah, I feel like that's what the doors are. Invitations to new places and new people. Or different places and people from time to time.
But holding a door for someone is 3 points, and if you do it for everyone in the neighbourhood, then that's almost 1,000 points, which is a start.
So Tahani's breaking down how the points work and how the strategy will help Eleanor. And the fact that you can strategize point earning or worthy of existing in a state of not being torturedness should be making them all suspicious already, I feel. It's the same way that when people are getting into universities with, a high-level university or into jobs that are impressive, they tick certain boxes that aren't even within reach for a majority of people, with things like expensive extracurriculars or time available to dedicate to volunteering or to do internships, aka working for free because your family set you up to be able to do that. Things that are not going to happen if you have, if you have to babysit all of your siblings after school every day or work to make ends meet with your family. You don't have the time or the resources available to put toward the extras or being the top of your class or whatever those boxes are that need ticking to get where you're trying to go. I'm not saying they're not people who manage it all. There are some that are sort of superhuman and absolutely exist, and I am in awe of them. But the majority can't do these things, and they are put on a trajectory so different from the handful of people who can make these moves. And Tahani is someone who has been set up to make all the right choices, and she does, only to be told that her motivation was wrong, so it didn't count. And I'm going to call BS on that. Millions for charity is millions for charity. That is funds that are very much needed and would not have been raised without Tahani. And if it was competition with her sister and a desire for attention that brought her to this, then it just means that good can come from unexpected places, is what I feel like. I'm okay with that. She should have been in the good place for raising those funds. But right now, back to the point, Tahani is trying to explain why holding this door matters to Eleanor, even if it is small, because Tahani is literally given a cheat sheet of what earns how many points.
Everyone hates you.
Well, fork you too.
No, this is good. Now that we know, we can actually do something about it.
Tahani realizing the problem and being excited about it. I'm sorry, but I feel like this is similarly a perspective that comes more easily to the privileged. I've heard about failure budgets, and it sounds great, and like something rich people get to do all the time, fail big, because they can afford to fail and keep living. However, this is information we can use. Identifying the problems, like not being liked in Eleanor's case, means you can detour to remedy this issue, and it will help you to achieve your goal. If you identify problems in your own life, you can choose to ignore it, or be defensive and double down, but if you're honest, it does the opposite of getting you where you want to be. Being able to see the problem for what it is allows you to address it. And I think culturally, we've come to avoid unpleasant feelings. So I'm going to tell you the way to decrease the negative feelings related to recognizing your part in these problems by being proactive in addressing it. It's the dwelling or rumination or suppression that are going to get you to keep you paralyzed. Walking right up to it might cause a bit of an adrenaline spike, depending on what it is, but you're not going to feel the same way you feel when you do nothing. I can't tell you what you'll feel, but the taking action makes it automatically different from the sitting in it. I saw like a short video recently, somebody was talking about it was a type of buffalo who hate the rain, and whenever they see rain coming, they all run toward the rain because that's how you have to spend the least amount of time in it by going right at it. And I love that story, and I wish I didn't just butcher it, but hopefully it reinforces my point.
I love you.
Real Eleanor tells Chidi she loves him, trying to advance in their relationship. Originally, I dismissed this point when I was collecting my clips, but I've thought it over a long time. I dismissed it because real Eleanor is actually a demon named Vicky, and this is torture. But this moment is, in fact, an effort of advancing, because she is trying to advance Chidi's commitment to her, his feelings for her, and his torture. From where Chidi is sitting, she's just trying to be closer with him, and that is already scary enough for him. It was his reaction, the, breaking for his panic attack, that made me not include it as a clip, because he is slowing the advancement. But when I think about how it works in real life, if I say I love you to someone first, and they don't say it back, my feelings still move forward regardless of how the other person responds, or how they feel. So the clip is here because I do see advancement occurring, both in what Vicky is doing and in what Chidi is perceiving.
Tell her you love her.
Hey, your score just went up 20 points.
And Chidi asks Eleanor for advice about what to do, now that real Eleanor is telling him she loves him. And it's the one time that Eleanor's points go up throughout this chapter until this moment. This is the only time we see Eleanor do something just because she wants to help. It's bringing something up for me how you treat others is about who you are, not the other person. I hear variations on this line all the time. But Eleanor wants to help in this moment because of who is asking, Chidi. She cares about Chidi, and it's why she offers real advice. And it brings up other complicating factors or situations I hear or see in real life. Like if you witness one person blow up at another person, but you know one or the other or both, it is absolutely going to alter how you interact with those people when you intervene, or, even it'll help decide if you're going to intervene. And that's how it should be. Deciding you have someone figured out based on observing how they treat someone. I mean, if it's decontextualized, to you, you could be so wrong on what you think you know about someone. I think it's easier to help when you care, and it's easier to care when you know the person or the situation. I'm sort of all over the place trying to get to a distinct point, but I guess what I'm thinking is, if this had been someone else in the neighborhood who had asked Eleanor's advice, and she gave well-meaning advice that wasn't good for them, would the points still go up? Put that way, yes, absolutely, because her advice to Chidi, if they both had full knowledge, would be terrible, because real Eleanor is a demon named Vicky who is tricking and torturing Chidi. But Eleanor still gets points for telling Chidi to tell her, to tell real Eleanor that he loves her. Because only the intention mattered there. Which clashes with what we come to find out with how the points work. Maybe that's the real problem here. Her points should have gone down. Or maybe they would only, go down if Chidi followed through on her advice. I don't know. You tell me in the comments what you think and if you're following my line of logic here.
It's not working. Not one more point.
Eleanor recreates the party Tahani threw the first night in the good place to try to get her points up, but nothing is happening. And the residents don't seem to hate her anymore, but the points aren't budging. And I also would like to point out they went backward in time to advance toward their goal. And Eleanor figures out herself why it's not working, the motivation issue. I'm going to reiterate, I don't think it should matter if it's being done for self-preservation. Good deeds are good deeds, regardless of intention. That's how I feel. Which I'm thinking on and seeing the trap in, because later, when we find out that nobody has gotten into the good place in over 500 years, seemingly good or innocuous choices people are making have unintended negative consequences, and those have nothing to do with intention. But now, if doing good things, but with faulty intention doesn't give you the points, then you shouldn't have your point value decreased by the unintended consequences. Am I unraveling the point system right now? I believe I am. Intention should not matter, and with that, you should not be having your point value decreasing over the unintended consequences of your choices either. Tahani should absolutely be in the good place, as should many, many other people, because I've decided intentions don't actually matter as per the system as it currently stands. But back to the point, the points go up because Eleanor makes the residents happy and feel good, and she's leaving, so she doesn't have an ulterior motive for making them feel good. So does this mean Eleanor made hundreds of demons happy? Do they actually like her now? Did the Po Buddies Nerfect line make her lovable amongst demons who are there to torture her? According to the points, yes. So that's an interesting thought. The demons felt good, and Eleanor is the one who made them feel good. Do they like her the rest of this story, and we just don't have access to that information? I mean, I like the idea of that a lot, particularly since the demons are working in this neighborhood for something like 300 years by the time they're told to abandon the project. They might have revolted much sooner, but they liked Eleanor, so they didn't. And I've solved the question none of you had. You're welcome. The demons actually really like Eleanor.
But she did earn enough points, which means that she's decided not to stay here, which means...
She's leaving.
So while real Eleanor is trying to, again, to advance her relationship with Chidi, she's having a serious talk with him, Chidi realizes what Eleanor, not real Eleanor, is doing, that her motivation changed, which means she's leaving, and it works because her points skyrocket. And I see this moment as a reveal of Chidi's actual emotions. He's talking about love with the person who is supposed to be his soulmate, and his mind is on Eleanor. Am I alone on this take? Comment below, please, and tell me if you saw something sooner or if it doesn't mean as much as I'm making of it. And this, right toward the end, is the point at which Eleanor's advancing crosses path with Janet's advancing. So I'm going to switch gears and catch us all up on what was going on with Janet and Jason throughout this chapter.
Never kissed anyone before. Is one tongue okay? I can add more tongues.
No, that's not it.
In order to advance to a new stage in her relationship with Jason, Janet is willing to change herself physically. This is quite possibly the most human thing she's ever suggested up to this point. Even the Cinderella folktale, I read it as women willing to change themselves for status. In the old tales, the stepsisters are literally hacking off parts of their feet to fit in that shoe so they can marry the prince and become a member of the royal family. I know many people, when they think of Cinderella now, they think of it as a romance. I don't see it that way. To me, it's about power and climbing ranks, and that Cinderella herself must simply be attractive and put up with the prince, who in many of these stories is often described in such a way that is not at all appealing, with lots of whining and pining and tantruming in some of these stories. And I honestly see the need for small feet as being part of this idea that the princess will be accepted so long as she leaves the smallest footprint. She needs to take up minimal space, not raise her voice, not make demands, and generally just be an object of awe for the masses who see themselves in her and then try to emulate her. And they don't mean by hacking off your feet, but that's where the story actually goes. So Janet does not need extra tongues to improve her kissing, and kissing isn't the problem. But it's interesting that Janet reads a lot like a teenager in this chapter, from willing to change herself at the slightest unhappiness from Jason, and then later when she chooses to run away rather than be separated from him.
Is it that person? Jianyu, the man standing right there, also wearing a wedding band?
This is the moment when Michael knows his plans are getting away from him. Because now Janet isn't functioning like a Janet. And I've been thinking about it. And while Eleanor's confession a couple chapters ago, it derails the first attempt of Michael's torture and the four humans helping each other become better people was unintended. It's the moment Janet starts to feel and think and do things she wants to do instead of just taking orders and helping residents. This is the moment that makes all the rest possible in this story. Michael is also looking for Janet here because she had not been showing up for the residents when they requested her. And this is something I think some people can relate to. You become invested or passionate or just deeply involved in something or someone, and all the other parts of your life fall to the side, and they get neglected or they just pile up in a to-do list. So, yeah, Janet is getting very human-like in this chapter. In this moment, it also makes me think of when characters wear coordinated or matching outfits to show they're together. Like again, the Pink Ladies jackets. And I mean, it's common to wear wedding bands that are matching after you get married. But I'm thinking of other scenes when I've seen a character holding two ice cream cones. The first one coming to mind is the episode of Bluey with the tradies. One of them buys the two cones, the second one walks off to take a phone call, and it ends up being, he sort of befriends Bluey and Bingo by offering them the second ice cream. But I feel like I've seen sadder versions of this scene a lot. Like, if a character is there holding two treats, it feels inevitable that they're going to be ditched or rejected while they are standing there, clearly holding something that they just got for another person, just to show how vulnerable it makes you to give or to care. Yeah, it just, it reads as tragedy whenever I see somebody in a shot now walking around with two ice creams. But yeah, just to retake happy feelings toward ice cream. I think maybe I'll bring my family to ice cream sometime soon, maybe this week. That's how I'm going to be inspired by this, and be happy with ice cream instead of anticipation of sadness when I see ice cream.
As you know, each time I am updated, I accrue new knowledge and abilities.
And the reboot may be part of what allowed her to bond with Jason in a way she's never bonded with anyone before. And to me, it sort of feels like she's going through puberty, because she's experiencing new things that people generally experience around after puberty in that realm. And it's, it's part of the human process of advancing from childhood to adulthood. And I have to say, I feel like I'm saying these things about Janet like I'm saying something negative about teenagers, and that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm reflecting back on some of my own teen years and the way I was, and the way my friends were, and I'm seeing it as sort of inevitable and natural. Some of the things that, I felt shame or anger over in the past when I thought about the things that I had done or said. But I guess maybe those things were just sort of supposed to happen as part of growing into an adult person. And Janet can't skip this part if she's going to have, I guess, a mature love for Jason or anyone in the future. Oof, but getting back on track, Janet's not the only person in this relationship who is undergoing some changes, some advancements. Jason is someone who, on Earth, he wanted to advance in his life also.
If we're gonna make it in the DJ game, we gotta get to Miami.
Yeah, Miami's expensive.
We saw Jason had plans to advance in his own life. He wanted to become a successful DJ, which to him, it involved working in Miami. But he doesn't have enough money to do that, because Miami's much more expensive than Jacksonville, I guess. So his next step is to get the money. And to him, the clearest, fastest route to that is robbing the restaurant they are currently in. When systems around you are so broken that this robbing a restaurant seems like, the practical plan, if you just think of everything Jason has ever said about his upbringing, his school, parents, etc., to him, this qualifies as a legitimate effort to move forward toward a goal, as far as he is concerned. Now, Jason's plan, first of all, it is a bad plan, but Jason's plan leads to his own death. He suffocates in the safe that they were going to plant in the restaurant. And I'm going to say plans for anything. Plans aren't enough. Plans and luck aren't enough. You should rehearse every aspect of any plan over and over and over, doing it to the best of your own ability every single time, so that you can find your weak spots and have those failures and address them all in rehearsal before you're actually doing it when it really counts. Because Jason could have died in rehearsal, that's true, instead of in the restaurant, which would have spared Pillboy from having to deal with cops. But it's also possible that if they'd tried it a couple of times ahead of time, Pillboy may have opened the safe after a certain amount of time to check on Jason, and perhaps that flaw in their plan could have been worked out. I suppose I'm focusing on the wrong thing. I should be focusing instead on how the plan never should have been to rob a restaurant. By practicing, Jason would have either found it to be too hard to pull off and not done it in the scenario where he doesn't die in practicing, or he could have potentially developed some new skill that could have been profitable, giving him a different means to the money he needs to pull off this plan of becoming a DJ in Miami. And I suppose that skill could have been something like locksmithing. I'm not sure. I haven't thought that one too far through, mostly because I was just still stuck on a plan is not enough. Rehearse your plans a lot.
I suffocated to death in a safe? I'm a moron.
Now, Jason, after seeing how he died, he gains a self-awareness that he's never had before. And it leads to him coming to a conclusion that I have mixed feelings about. Because your past does not dictate your future. fact that there is now this new self-awareness means that there's a possibility, a real possibility, for Jason to change for the better now. Every time I hear someone singing a song about not being good enough for the person they love and now they're going to leave for that person, the person they love's good, I just think BS. Because if you have the self-awareness to see that your actions are hurting another person that like in the singer claims to care about, then you have the ability to make choices that won't hurt them, besides just choosing to leave. But anyway, that's my own bias. I know. People can choose to be different from one day to the next. Jason can choose in this moment to strive to be someone who thinks more. It's something he likes about Janet, so it stands to reason that he could decide to cultivate that in himself and allow her to influence him in this way. But Janet rejects his idea that she should leave him, and he's happy, so he doesn't fight her on it. And I'd like to acknowledge anyone who has similarly felt they weren't good enough for someone or for something. First, yes, you are good enough. And second, my hope for you is that you recognize in yourself a capacity to change that allows you to be more of the person you're trying to be tomorrow than you are today. And in ways that recognize you are changing for your own needs and wants and fulfillment, not for somebody else. And Janet, again, just getting very teenager vibes from her. Michael thinks rebooting Janet is the answer after she told him the feelings likely came directly from her being rebooted, or like as a direct result from her being rebooted. So it shows that Michael is panicking and he's not thinking. Why? Because why would he decide that the answer is to do again the thing that very likely had a key component in altering, getting in the way of his plans right now? So when you try to advance forward without adequate, thought, you're less likely to make a good choice. Michael makes some poor choices, and this is one of them. And it just becomes Janet's being rebooted all these times. It creates this problem for Michael of her loving Jason into a much bigger problem for everyone later.
There is a woman named Mindy St. Clair who lives in a neutral zone by herself. It's neither a good place nor a bad place.
A medium place?
So how Janet interacts with information since this reboot, it's interesting because she has all this information that she has access to, and she's not just using it exclusively to help neighborhood residents now. She's using it to do what she wants, which is something I don't think we saw her doing at all before that reboot. And thankfully for Eleanor, what Janet wants is going to benefit her as well. They're going to leave this neighborhood and go to Mindy St. Clair's in the medium place. And I just couldn't resist. This is a basic physical advancement on the train, but also advancing in their plan of escape. And I apologize if you can hear that in the background. That is my dog chewing on one of his treats. Sorry.
Because I believe she's stealing my train.
I'm sorry, Michael. Sorry, everyone.
I tried imagining what it would be like to be Tawny when this happens. And I think my first thought is I'm wondering if does this change the boost in points that Eleanor just got? I mean, if she escapes, it doesn't really matter. And I do want the points to matter. I put a lot of work into coming up with a plan for Eleanor. But she has to leave, and she had to leave to get the points. So none of it really matters. My friend is leaving. I don't know if I'll ever see her again, so sort of bittersweet. I don't want her to go to the bad place. It's sort of a mix of confusion, sadness, some relief, some annoyance. And I'm just a little bit impressed that Eleanor stole the judge's train, because that's brazen. I'm very much in my head because I'm sort of numb physically. I'm so shocked. It's kind of like an out of body experience watching Eleanor do this take away, steal the train. Yeah. Plus, I think because they're still in a neighborhood that's mimicking the Good Place, so the really nice conditions is more like I'm not noticing my environment as much right now. I'm very much in my head if I'm Tahani right here. All right, so what are my takeaways regarding advancement? I think one that I didn't anticipate, how separate advancement is from obedience, particularly how it's shown in this chapter, and particularly with Janet, because we're seeing someone who was programmed to be helpful to everyone, and now instead she's wanting things for herself. She's experiencing feelings, and she's putting herself ahead of this programming and the purpose she's supposed to fulfill in this chapter. And this actually happens because she is more herself, not less. And every time a Janet is rebooted, they acquire new knowledge. That's why I'm saying she is more, she is not less. So she is advanced in ways that are defiant and rebellious. I'm also noticing that advancement is often unpredictable and may resist coming across as linear to an outsider. It might not even seem linear to the person who is, moving forward. Overall, I'd say one should simply make a point to check in with themselves when they are advancing toward anything in any way, just to be sure that what is occurring sort of as a consequence or in the wake of your movements and your choices is what you want in your life. Yeah, so let me know in the comments if you notice any other sort of advancement that I missed. Yeah, I've been way off track with getting these videos done, and it's probably going to be all over the map when I can actually get anything up from now on. But hopefully that won't be an issue for anyone. And anyways, I hope you all have a lovely day.
What can you possibly say to us that'll make up for your actions?
Po Buddy's nerfect?